If you're a parent or if you're a caregiver, you have to really rely on your self-care in order to fully care for someone else.
Basically is the definition, selfish, full of self. And look at the word selfless, no self. And she said, how can that be?
If anyone is second guessing you, they're not for you. We are back for another episode to answer our listeners and our viewers' questions, which I know is a favorite of yours and a favorite of mine because we absolutely love hearing from everyone and knowing the answers that they want answered from us. So, hi, Mom.
Hi, Michelle.
Are you excited for this?
Yes. I love sharing our personal and vulnerable experiences with everyone, and I love that they ask us questions. It is my favorite thing.
Yeah, as always, we're so grateful to all of you who have submitted questions and give us your insights. And please make sure to keep doing that so we can have so many juicy Q&A episodes to come.
Yes. So,
Mom?
Michelle, are you ready?
Take it away.
You get the first question. How do you check yourself and ensure you're not being a narcissist while prioritizing your own needs?
A very soft, easy
Yeah.
entry point for today's conversation.
That's why I'm glad I got to go first.
Yeah.
I got to ask you.
Thank you so much.
But I think you have some really good thoughts on this. We've
Yeah.
talked about this before individually. So.
Yeah. A few things come to mind at first when hearing that question. And firstly, I think it's important to differentiate narcissist and narcissism versus simple self-centeredness or being selfish or being overly introspective. I think the word narcissist gets thrown around a lot lately, and sometimes we get in the habit of labeling things as narcissism when really they're not, because narcissism is a psychological condition that is diagnosed via professionals, and that's way different than maybe too much tunnel vision or being too much in your own head. And so first I would say that, narcissism is a condition where you are solely focused on yourself and your needs, regardless of the impact that it has on others. Amongst other things, I'm obviously not a therapist or licensed professional, but that is something that's diagnosed and is worked through with those licensed professionals. What we're talking about in this show and in all of our work isn't that, because that's not our lane. And I think what this question is really asking is, when you embark on a self-care journey or a personal development path, or you want to become your own best friend, there is a lot of fear that I think a lot of us experience because we're not always taught how to love ourselves or care for ourselves, that doing that is selfish or that it's an unnecessary task and that we're going to be labeled as someone who doesn't care about others or that is too self-centered. And so I would say, firstly, recognize that we aren't taught how to do these things as kids. Maybe in this generation now going forward, that will be different. But my generation, your generation, it's true. I think the seed was planted within me that being loving of yourself was selfish or self-centered, and that wasn't a good thing. And so how can we unlearn that? And how can we normalize loving and caring for ourselves in a way that's in alignment with who we are? And understanding of our values, which I think then goes into, if you're someone who values compassion and kindness and care and empathy and being aware of the world around you, you're going to take that with you in your journey towards self-love. And so if you notice that maybe you're being a little too insular in your practices or in how you're treating people, you're going to say, oh, wait, this isn't in alignment anymore. I need to course correct. And I think, Mom, you often say in so much of your work that also having the people around you to say what's happening is also important.
Yeah, I love what you just said, Michelle. First off, about narcissism. It is a very prominent word right now being used. And I would just add one more thing, that I'm not a psychologist or a clinical professional either, but I do know that one of the prime definitions of a narcissist not only is that they only think about themselves, that they are incapable of thinking about anyone else. So I think that's huge. And so I
There's
think
no room.
there's no room. And so I think that's a sliver of the population, however, whatever that percentage is. So the person that asked this question, I don't know if that's how they view themselves. So that would be the first thing that I would ask. Do I not care about anyone else? I mean, yes, go see a professional if you think that and all of that to try to help you. But my question always is, would be, do I not care about anyone else? Do I only care about my own needs and my own desires at the expense of anyone, anything, any person, involved? It doesn't matter. It could be the environment. It could be people. It could be animals. It could be anything. Is my welfare first and foremost, and it doesn't matter what the collateral damage could be. If that's the case, then that possibly could be, classified
if that
as a
resonates,
narcissist.
then maybe
then that could be it.
seek
But I
out
agree with
professional
you.
support.
I think it's more, I know that I didn't learn. I was always taught that you cannot be selfish. Don't be selfish, Barbara. Even as a child, don't be so selfish, Barbara. Share this, share that, do
Can I
this, do that. Yes.
Interject. I would even go so far to say, in your journey of learning and going on retreats and study, you went through a practice. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to talk about it too. Yes, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, please, go ahead.
You went through a practice where one of the tenets of the practice was putting others first.
Yes. So yes. And I was going to...
Which inherently is not bad, but talk about it.
No, yes. This is what's so important about this. And I think especially as women, and I'm not just talking to women, I know that we have men listening and watching too, but especially as women, I know as a woman, as a little girl, as an adult, as a young adult, and as a full-aged woman, I've been told don't be selfish, or you're being selfish. That's kind of a natural thing that comes along. Or you're too much, or don't be so aggressive, or do you only think about yourself? Are you only caring about yourself? And I think what is so ironic about those statements that I'm saying right now is our whole work that you and I do together in our whole practice is you have to put yourself first. And I say that not to be selfish, but to be in alignment with how can you help others if you're not putting yourself first. And so I learned this valuable lesson in treatment. I remember going to a class in treatment in 1985, and this person saying, the first thing she said, she put it on a chalkboard, look at the word selfish, full of self. It basically is the definition, selfish, full of self. And look at the word selfless, no self. And she said, how can that be? How can you ever help yourself, live your life, do the things you want to do, be a mother, be a father, be a business person, member of society, if you have no self, if you are striving to have no self? So it stuck with me now for 40 plus years. So then, yes, I entered into a meditation center practice for a decade or so, that one of the tenets was putting others first, which is something that I do love to do as well. But I don't think about putting others first without putting myself first and knowing who I am, what I want, what I desire, what are my boundaries, what do I care about, and working through my own work of not allowing other people to dictate to me and define who I am. So it's a very slippery slope, so to speak, if you think about it, or it's a very fine line. But I don't think that we can we can't do the work that we're here to do and live the life that we're here to live, of happiness, of ease, of joy, of relieving suffering, relieving our own suffering and all that, if we're not taking care of ourselves first. And then we share, as you said, we fill our cup up and then we go share with others.
I was just going to say.
You said that, I think, didn't you, to start this?
Well, I just was going to say that adage is true, that you can't pour from an empty cup. Like, you have to fill up your cup so that you can share with others. And if you're constantly depleted or burned out or stressed out or not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to do the things that light you up or you're passionate about, or to take care of the people. If you're a parent or if you're a caregiver, you have to really rely on your self-care in order to fully care for someone else. And I know that that is a really tough reframe and redefining that word, because it isn't something that we're taught. But it is a worthwhile endeavor to try and reprogram your brain from that train of thought and reinforcing that no, caring for myself is good and it is only going to help me be more effective, more useful, and more valuable in this life that I'm living.
And if you're someone listening to this thinking, I can do it. I was one of those people years ago. I can do it.
You are always the exception to the rule.
I can help everyone and still be okay. And I'm telling you, you can't. You maybe can do it for a while. It is not sustainable. It is not practical. And eventually what happened to me is I ended up in a treatment center suffering from bulimia for 7 years. So it's going to affect you because we are human beings. So we have to be human beings that function as human beings, taking care of ourselves. So why do we think that we have to take care of other human beings and we are not one of the whole? Like if we isolate ourselves and don't think that we're one of the whole, we cannot sustain it and we cannot survive and live the life and thrive that we're wishing to do. So if you're concerned about where you fall on the spectrum here of, am I a narcissist? Am I too selfish? Am I this or that? Just ask yourself, is it true that I don't care about anyone else but myself?
Yeah.
That the consequences of the actions that I'm about to take make no difference to me. I'm doing it. And then that's the good way that I check myself. And then I love your idea that we talk about all the time, having another person that you trust and you love that'll say, hey, you've said to me often, hey, Mom, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Over the course of our years together. So having those two checks in your life are very helpful.
And lastly, I'll say on this topic, and I wrote about this in my book
Yay.
that is coming out later this year.
November 4th, your birthday.
Yes, that's a very
Exciting.
happy coincidence. And that you've talked to me in my personal life, Mom, is that we think of ourselves like a car with a battery. And that if you somehow accidentally leave the door open or the light on in your car, I don't know if this is true about cars these days though, but
it was in my day.
Growing
That's
up
why
at
I
least,
use it. Yeah.
this happened to me once where one day as a kid, I accidentally left the car door open. We woke up to go to school and the battery was dead. And, we were always super busy, super in a rush as a kid. Like there was never enough time. And so the fact that the car was dead was not ideal. And so we were really frantic running around and trying to figure that out. And I often think of that as a metaphor for our lives. Yeah. Like you can't leave the light on in your own life and not recharge your battery. You have to make sure that your battery is full. Even think about plugging your phone in overnight.
I was going to say, a modern day.
You charge your phone overnight so that it can work the next day. And, we're not machines, we're not devices, but we have a finite resource of energy and we have to make sure that we are doing our best to fill it up. I know sometimes we'll be in phases where our energy is low, sometimes it'll be high, but even through it all, we're still doing the best we can to maintain our energy. So think of yourself as a car or a phone sometimes, if nothing else. Your car is not a narcissist. Your phone is not selfish for needing to be plugged in. So.
Well, and I'll add one more thing now that you just said that. Just it's something to think about if you're the one that asked the question again, or if you're listening. That the reason that I felt like I couldn't be taking care of myself all those years is, and this I learned all this in treatment and through the therapy that I received there, is I didn't think that I mattered.
Yeah.
Like you matter, everyone else matters, the planet matters, all the things out there matter, but do I really matter?
Again, the exception to the rule.
Yeah, a lot of things, I think a lot of it also depends on maybe as an opportunity to look at for yourself. Do I have a lot of self-deprecating or does my self-worth hinge on what other people think of me and what other people do and all of those things and what I do in return? If I do enough for other people or take care of them, or if I'm too selfish, they're not going to like me. And my self-worth or what I think about myself and who I am matters based on the external world and what people think is important.
Who knew that was going to be such a long answer to such a good question?
Because I think so many people have this.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Feeling.
It's a good one.
I love it.
So the next question for you, Mom, is how do you separate from your ex after a divorce and reclaim your sense of freedom and individuality?
And you thought the first question was hard?
Hey, you started it.
Thanks.
I'm continuing it.
No, it's a perfect question because I've actually just gone through all of this. So how do you separate from your ex? The first answer to that part of the question is, I'm sure a lot of it depends on whether you have children involved and all of that. In my situation, 33-year marriage, second marriage, you were an adult. And so separating after 33 years, you were already an adult. I could have the opportunity to say, I'm going to separate from you and you're no longer going to be in my life. So that's the first thing. It's a little bit trickier if you've got children. And in the first, I've been married twice. In my first marriage, where it's your father, you were 3. So it was a different thing. I wasn't thinking about how do I separate and do all of this and not and not have contact with you and not be in a relationship with you. So that matters a lot. So I think in both scenarios, the first thing that I had to look at myself was that what's happening?
Yeah.
Why do we need, what is happening that's causing the divorce?
What do you need?
What do I need? What does the situation need? Have I thrown everything at it and trying to fix everything in it and it's just not working? And vice versa, I guess, with the other person. But I'm looking at myself because we're looking at ourselves right now. And am I at the end? Like, is this the answer? Is this the path that I'm supposed to be taking? So asking yourself all of those questions, which I did for so long. And I think at the end of the day, what I realized, and I love what you asked in this question, reclaiming sense of freedom and individuality, 33 years, I didn't think that I wasn't free. Because what is so ironic about this question and ironic about my life answering this question after being married 33 years is the core ethos of my being is to be free. If you've listened to any episodes or been to any of the work or looked at social media, freedom
For you is everything.
is my thing.
Yeah.
Freedom. And so in my mind, I already was free because I was living my life. I was in recovery. Before I even got married. So I've been in recovery over 40 years. So I was in recovery. I was doing my practice. I was doing all of the things. I was raising you. I was living my life. But with all the dysfunction that was also going on and all the chaos and the trauma and the things that were happening during the marriage, I kept putting a Band-Aid on it, thinking that, oh, I can practice myself into okay. It's okay. This is going to work. And there was a part of me that thought that was freedom. I have the freedom to do my practice. I have the freedom to live my life. I have the freedom to raise you and really, in essence, do the things that I wanted to do. So I had a warped version of freedom back then, and I wasn't thinking about how really internally I wasn't very free because I was miserable a lot of the time.
Right.
So I think when I look at this question of regaining a sense of freedom, ask yourself, where are you not free? What does that freedom word mean to you? And for me, I was free to go live my life and go to the movies and go to retreats and all the things, but I really wasn't free.
Yeah.
Because
that's an important distinction.
My happiness, I wasn't happy. I wasn't feeling like this was the life that I want to be living. Even though I could make my own choices, I wasn't free.
You were trapped in your own life.
Yes. So ask yourself, what does that word freedom mean for you? And what does that mean for you to be free?
Yeah.
That's the first thing that I would ask yourself, because that's huge.
And if the answer is no, sorry not to interject.
No,
but
please do.
If you have any judgments about making a change, can you work through those? Because I've said this in past episodes on the show, but nothing was more shocking to me when you finally told me you were getting divorced. Not that part. That part I was like, okay, finally, let's go.
And I was going to say, I did not know that because one of my things of not feeling free is I wanted to end it sooner, and I was afraid. I thought, oh my gosh, I've lasted this long, and Michelle, she's going to be so sad without even asking her.
Right.
I just assumed it.
Right.
Go ahead.
But secondly, I was so surprised that your sadness or that you were hung up not on
fear,
not on the relationship ending, but you said to me, Michelle, I can't be a person that's divorced twice. I'm not that person. And I was like, what? That's what you're upset about right now? That's the thing that's plaguing you? And again, that's a valid judgment. It's something that, society places a lot of opinions about people who are divorced more than once or at all. But I was like, Mom, we can work through that. That's fine. That's an easy thing to tackle. But I guess I say all of that because you had judgments about what that meant for you. And I think this goes into this question of reclaiming your individuality.
Yes.
it was also fearful for you to start over, to feel like you were embarking on a new chapter of your life in your 60s and probably not thinking that that was something that you would ever have to do. So I guess, do you want to talk a little bit about how you navigated that path of starting over and understanding what that part of your life was going to look like?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that that's why the first thing is identifying the freedom, because you're right. I realized I wasn't free because I was worried about what people are going to think and what society thought, and actually what I thought
Yeah.
of getting a divorce a second time, which is ludicrous.
Yeah.
Who the hell cares?
No one.
Does. No one cares. I don't
And
even
if they
care.
care, it doesn't matter.
And when you even said that to me, I'm like, I don't really care. I guess it's the way you expressed it was like, duh, I don't even care.
Look, I have so much empathy because you were so sad. But I was like, Mom, you're crying. You're so sad. And I'm like, I'm so surprised that you're so sad because like I know this is what you want. And when you said, I just can't believe I'm gonna be a person divorced twice, I was like, oh, okay. Like, it was very sweet.
I just want to give a little caveat here if you're watching this and you did write the question, that I'm laughing now, and I think this is the most hilarious, most absurd, and most fun, wonderful thing in the world. So I already gained my sense of freedom and I gained my sense of individuality. So there's something about just owning the truth that
But it was
sets you
hard.
free. The truth will set you free. There you go. That's the answer. Like, you don't even have to worry about, am I going to get my freedom? What do I need to do? You don't have to worry about getting your individuality. But once you admit the truth of, what does freedom mean to me, which is what I did, and that was the end of it. I think that was the smooth sailing, so to speak. I mean, the divorce itself was a little bit not smooth sailing, but that had not, I didn't worry about that. It was more, how was it going to reflect and how was I going to feel and what was going to happen. So, and then the claiming individuality, you really, once you're getting divorced, you have to put yourself first. Yeah. You have to think of, what do I need, especially if you have children, which is what I did in divorcing your dad. When your dad and I got divorced, what does Michelle need? What do I need to do? How can I compromise in that situation? I had to compromise. How can I compromise but also not lose myself? How can I not abandon myself anymore? And where was I abandoning myself before? So that's the other question you ask yourself. What do I need? Where was I losing myself? And these are tough questions. It's hard. They're hard to answer. And so be patient.
Yeah.
Be really patient. This takes a while. I'm divorced August 2023, and now I'm laughing and I'm thrilled, and my life is, I feel like I'm a new woman. Yes. So it will unfold once you're truthful and ask yourself these questions, and then honor and be vulnerable enough and courageous enough, brave enough to ask for what it is you need, knowing that it's going to help your children if they're younger, or it's going to help your adult child. Yeah. You can see how happy Michelle is, and she was like, thank God you're doing all of this. And then the other thing I would say is, in the patience and giving yourself grace and knowing you're going to make a million mistakes. And that's okay. We're not perfect. We're human beings, and we're navigating this treacherous time of divorce, which is a death. Yeah. And it's huge. Patience, grace, patience. And I use this affirmation a lot. Patience attains all things. Yeah. Teresa of Avila said this in one of her prayers. And I remember seeing it as a child, repeating this prayer. I was raised Catholic. I don't practice anything anymore, but I love prayers and passages that help me live my life to my fullest extent. Patience attains all things, and it does. 2 years into it, patience attains all things. And the last thing that I would say is, don't put any pressure on yourself to be anything other than just being. Mm-hmm. I think I had a lot of pressure on now what. Oh my gosh, I'm 68 years old. Now what? Well, I was 66 then. Now what? I'm old, I'm 33. Like, I was all this stuff. I don't have a lot of time left. I kept saying to you, I have less time going forward than I have backwards. Oh my gosh, just be. Yeah. Literally, time is a precious commodity that we can never get back. So really just be. I have so many goosebumps right now and almost a little teary. Just really be with yourself, and allow another person to take care of you, which you did a lot. You honored the fact that I didn't want to be divorced. And so really allow other people to care for you, that are there for you, knowing that if you make a mistake, it's okay. Mm-hmm. I made so many mistakes. You suffered so much in other areas of your life that aren't even about necessarily this divorce. So just thinking about that you will make mistakes, that it is okay. And that your children and your child, if it's one child that's an adult child especially, will understand your vulnerability and will love you even more.
Beautifully said.
So I don't know what you want to add to that.
No,
but
I think
just,
you covered it all, and I think you explained it really well.
you know, and
It
then
takes what it takes.
it takes what it takes. And one other thing, if you want to just think about journaling, I know that's a huge practice of yours. Just journaling and being creative and curious about what could your life look like? What are your desires? You know, that we talk about that Bronnie Ware quote often. The biggest regret of the dying, she was a hospice nurse, was I didn't live the life that I wanted to live. And so I've thought about that a lot my whole life in this practice. But during this time, you know, what are your deepest desires and what would you want to do with the rest of your life?
That's really great.
Anything else to add to that, sweetie?
Nope.
It was a big one.
Next question.
Next question is for you. How do you handle people who try to undermine your success and accomplishments? These are all big. You know,
Yeah.
you all are smart.
Yeah.
You're all really, really smart people, and I just love this.
And insightful.
And I love you trusting us to answer your questions and knowing that we're going to give you our own life experiences and what's happened. So thank you. How do you do that? My nickname for Michelle is Foots, which we might get into in another episode. But
Yeah, you haven't called me Foots on
Yeah.
the show.
No. How do you do that, Foots?
So first, I think I would say if whoever sent in this question, or if you resonate with this question, you know, I'm really sorry that you've had someone that has made you question your abilities or your accomplishments or your successes, because you don't deserve that. None of us deserve to be questioned in that way or to be brought down a peg like that. And unfortunately, sometimes life will present us with people who don't have our best interests at heart, or who are jealous or whatever it might be, but they're hurtful and they're harmful, and it sucks. So I'm really sorry that if you've experienced that or are experiencing it, you know, just know that that's not your fault. And going back to the conversation we had about, you know, judgments of other people and like prioritizing your needs and not worrying about what other people think of you. If someone is questioning your abilities or not believing in your successes, that's not an opinion that matters to you, honestly. I mean, and I say that lovingly. And if this is coming from someone who had someone in their life that they really value and care about, or that had an important role in their life, act this way or behave this way, you know, I would really recommend or consider reevaluating that role, because someone who really loves and cares for you and values you won't make you feel that way. Certainly there are times in our lives where maybe people in our lives will be jealous of us or will have envy of our successes or anything like that. I think that's a normal part of being a human. But if you're in a relationship with someone where the baseline is kindness and care and respect, you'll put those feelings aside to be supportive. Or you'll out it and be like, look, you just accomplished something really amazing, and I have to admit I'm a little bit jealous, but I'm really happy for you. Like, I can deal with that. But the people that I encounter that maybe, you know, actually, this is really funny. I've had, you know, on social media, it makes you choose what you are. And I know we've talked about labels and purpose and things like that, but I always chose writer. I've always labeled myself a writer, like writer, actor, artist, anything like that.
Or your profession or label yourself. Yeah.
Public figure. I don't know. I've always chose writer. And I remember years ago, someone commented on something on social media. It's really laughable that you call yourself a writer. You've never published anything in your life. And I was like, well, I write on, you know, at that point I was writing weekly blogs, and I had been published in other digital publications and things like that. And, you know, I wrote back that, and they're like, you're not a writer if you've never written a book. And I believed it for a second, and I was like, well, I'm gonna write a book at some point. And now, you know, my book is coming. But I say that, I give that example to say that that person's opinion on whether or not I'm a writer, even though that was someone I didn't know, it doesn't matter. That belief that just because I hadn't been a published author did not negate all of the work that I had done that was my writing. And I won't lie and say that that didn't affect me in the moment and make me question myself. But so much in our podcast and in our work, we talk about the recovery time of like how long it takes for you to come back to yourself. And I reminded myself that that is not a reflection of who I am, and that person doesn't get to define who I am. And, there was a part of me that's like, well, one day I'm going to prove this person wrong. But those people are not your people. That person was not my person. That person's not going to be someone that is in my sphere that I'm going to let dictate how I feel about my life. And so anyone that's making you question yourself or taking you down a peg in any way, I just think of that they're not your people. And if anything else I've learned in my life journey is there might not always be a ton of people that are going to be your people. I always think of quality over quantity. And if I have a couple people, a handful of people that are my people, that's enough. So if nothing else, just know that if anyone is second guessing you, they're not for you.
I love that, Michelle. And I think I love the example that you gave, because I feel like it did affect you for the moment. I didn't even know this whole story. It did affect you for the moment, and that's going to happen because we're human beings. It is going to affect us. I think that what you said is so incredibly powerful that you took it in for a moment, but then you realized it's not true. So I would say take it in for a moment because it hurts, because we are human. Yeah. But then realize, don't give it any more energy. Don't think you have to fix it. Don't think you have to answer to it. Don't do anything else. Take it in and say, well, they don't know me. That's not true. And move on and be able to, it's a recovery time that we talk about, and move on. And then I love what you said, and I use this a lot. Choose people who choose you.
Yeah, that's a great
like if they're not choosing you, if they're disrespecting
belittling you.
Yeah. So choose people that choose you, and don't let it take up space in your mind or your energy or your spirit.
I love that. I think that's a great, choose people who choose you.
Yeah.
Across the board for all of these questions. I think
Yes.
is a perfect place to close out this episode, and to leave people thinking about that and what that looks like in each of their lives. So thank you everyone for sending in your questions. Thank you for such thoughtful and deep questions. And thank you, Mom, for, as always, sharing. And we can't wait for our next episode of Q&A.
Thank you.